Hey, welcome back to the channel. Okay, first off, apologies if you hear rumbling in the background. My brain has decided the perfect time to film this is when I've got the washing machine running in the next room. I don't understand my brain, I don't expect you to understand my brain. It just does what it wants. And yeah. Apologies for the lighting, slight angle. Even though it is the middle of the afternoon and it is technically light outside, it's not that light outside. It's Scotland in January, it's just dark all the time. And slightly lopsided angle because apparently my tripod has died and just refuses to hold my phone. So I think I might need to look into getting another phone stand. Yay! So, with all of that relative negativity over and done with, let's chat about the books I DNF'd in 2025. This hopefully should be a relatively short video. I don't want to spend too much time belaboring over... belaboring? Belaboring, I think is the word I was trying to say, but I don't want to spend too much time going over books that I actively chose not to continue reading for one reason or another. Also, there's only 7. I DNF'd significantly less last year than I have in previous years. With all of that preamble, let's just get into it, shall we? And as always, these are just my opinions. These do not necessarily mean that they are bad books, although in my opinion, 1 of 2 of them are bad books. But it is my opinion. I highly encourage anyone, if they want to make their own opinion about these books, please go out and do so. This is just to give you an indication. I talk a lot about the books I really like, the books I love. I'm hoping to get back to talking about just the books I'm currently reading, but sometimes we gotta talk about the books that I don't like, and that will also give you an indication of what my reading taste is like and whether or not it aligns with yours. Okay? And with all of that further preamble out of the way, let's just get into it, shall we? These are in chronological order, so the first one I DNF'd in 2025 was Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. My laptop's over here, it has the list. This one, I wanted to fall in love with this book. I wanted this to be one of the best books I'd ever read. I'd heard so many good things about it, and I couldn't. This book was too hard for me. And I don't mean that it was a difficult read and that it was very dense and the writing style was very difficult to get on with. It wasn't. It's just that thematically, this book is as dark as it gets. This book, it's a very short book, it's less than 200 pages, and it has all of the trigger warnings. And wow. I absolutely understand. This is a lot of people's, this is on like top 10 lists for a lot of people. And I fully understand why. I personally just could not bring myself to continue reading when there was a scene. I don't want to get into too much detail about what the particular scenes were, but there's just one particular scene where she was in her teacher's house and I couldn't. I had to put it down, was like, I feel physically sick. I should feel physically sick, and you know, if you read that scene and you don't feel at the very least disturbed, there's something wrong with you. But yeah, I read for escapism, and this was not the kind of escapism I wanted. Earthlings is basically about this little girl, and I think as the book goes on, we see her into adulthood, where she is convinced that she is an alien, and she is just waiting for her real parents to come down and bring her home. It's just such a weird book. It's beautifully written, and I have to give a lot, and I do mean a lot of kudos to the author and to the translator, because it is translated from Japanese, because there are so many times, almost every other page, something bad is happening. Something really, like, this situation, the way people are reacting, the way people are behaving, the way people are treating her is not okay. But our main character views it as okay. At one point she's like, this is just my role. My role in this family is for them to take their grievances out on me. I am essentially the punching bag, and she views it as totally okay. And this is written in first person, so we, as the reader, know that she is kind of just accepting, and to her that's just the way things are, and this is not inherently a bad thing. But the author has managed to write it in such a way that although it's written in first person, as the reader, we know that this is terrible, and she's in no way romanticizing or endorsing it. So if you are okay with very dark themes and you name the trigger, it's in this book. That's what it felt like at one point. I'm not going to list the triggers, but I absolutely very much recommend look up the triggers before you read this. But yeah, if you are okay with dark theming, this is an excellent book and I would recommend it. I just didn't have the stomach for it, essentially. So moving on from that, we've gone from a book where I can understand why everyone really enjoys this to a book, and I'm saying, you know, I recommend it under certain circumstances, to a book that I am absolutely not recommending to anybody. Anybody. I don't understand this book. That is Swipe Right for Monsters by R. O'Leary. And yeah, this is just bad fan fiction. The type of writing in this book, and it was the writing and the plot. Actually, it was everything about this book. It was the character decisions. I think I got about halfway through it. I DNF'd it at 50%. So glad I did not pay for this book. It was free on Kindle one day. I found it via BookBub. I assume that's how I found it. It was a while ago. Yeah, this is basically a contemporary fantasy romance where our main character is on a dating app. Our main character is human. She ends up on a dating app for the supernatural, the monsters. Matches with a few of them, so decides the best way forward with this is to go on a group date. I can't remember whether or not she informed all of the guys that it was going to be a group date or not, but naturally we get there and there's a mix of wares and vampires and they're all completely squabbling, and she's like, you guys are more interested in squabbling than you are in me, so she walks out. And honestly, that's where the book should have ended. It just should have ended there. But what happens is we end up with our character having a series of misfortunes, as you do. Her car breaks down, housework needs to be done. So one of the guys is a mechanic, so he looks after her car. One of them is a handyman, carpenter, something or other. So he comes and does some work in the house for her. And I honestly can't remember how the vampires turned back up because they were both wearers. But ultimately, in the space of about a chapter, everyone's living together. But she's not dating any of them. It just makes sense for them all to move into her house. And to continue going on dates with her and for her to continue shacking up with them. And honestly, this was the type of story where it was incredibly self-indulgent, and it just read like exceptionally self-indulgent fanfiction, although I couldn't tell you what it was fanfiction of. And I don't mean to say that as in like fanfiction is bad, because I love fanfiction, but I love good fanfiction, and this was not good. This just, yeah, it was overly self-indulgent. It needed an editor, and it honestly, it needed someone to just go, put that in the bin and don't touch it again. Go find a new hobby. I didn't mean for that to get as salty as it did, but there you go. Then I realized my books are kind of, they're almost going to zigzag. We're going to go like, these are inherently good books. They're just not for me, and these are just books I didn't like at all. So we're going to go flip back to a very well loved book, and I actually read this for one of my book clubs. I want to say back in March, April-ish. And yeah, the vast majority of people loved this book. And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Morgenstern? Yeah. By Erin Morgenstern. Again, this was another one I went into it going, I am going to love this book. I was so excited for this. I had it on audio. I'd had a copy of the audiobook for a while. I was like, this is perfect. It's going to make me read it. It's just not for me. I didn't care about any of the characters. This book, I want to tell you what it's about, but honestly at this point I couldn't even tell you what it's about. What is it about? We basically have our two main characters and they are competing. They're both magicians and they're competing against each other, but no one actually knows what they're competing in. There's like this ongoing game bet by like their masters, like their teachers, who they know the rules, but our two main characters don't. They just know that they're gonna have to go head to head at some way or another. And it's all set in the backdrop of the night circus, which is the circus that comes and goes. Sometimes it exists, sometimes it doesn't. It's a traveling circus, but you know, there's more to it than meets the eye. Again, this is another one that is so incredibly beautifully written. It's very much vibes and atmosphere first, then a little bit of plot, and then the character work. I'd say plot and character work are probably equal, but it's very much vibes and atmosphere first. And I'm a character plot person. I'm not an atmosphere person. And this was such a focus on the prose because it is beautifully written, but it is the focus of the plot is on the prose of the story of the book is on the prose and the atmosphere. And if I can't get behind the characters, if I don't get to know them, I don't care. And quite frankly, I think I got about a third of the way through the book before I finished it. Did I tell you what I did? Yeah, I got a third of the way through. And I was bored and I was looking for excuses not to pick it up. So I did both my book and this myself a service and a good deed, and I put it down. Because we shouldn't be reading, even if they are critically acclaimed, award-winning, beloved by all. Even if book has all of those accolades, if you personally are not enjoying it and are not vibing with it, don't force yourself. Because you'll just feel worse about the book in the end. So yeah, DNF the Night Circus. That's probably the one on this list I'm most disappointed about because I was so convinced I was going to love this. I was so ready to love this. But I didn't. Next up, again, this is one where it's just needed better editing, I think. It's needed a much stronger. The editor needed a much stronger hand. In particular, the line editor. Because I think the concept is fine. But that is the Baby Dragon Cafe. Yes, the Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Qureshi. I was poised. I bought this going, I actually pre-ordered this, and I am never pre-ordering a debut author again because this book burned me because I was so ready for this to just be really cute and adorable and just like a cozy small town romance but with baby dragons. It was gonna be amazing. And where the writing style in The Night Circus might have almost been like too purple and too flowery for me, this one was just far too juvenile. The writing style was, like, can we graduate high school before you write a book, please? Or graduate high school and then edit your book? I don't mind if you write it in high school, but please don't just straight up publish what you wrote when you were 13. That's how the writing style of this one felt. And a lot of the time I can look past that. But oh my god, the main character. I wanted to throw her out the window, hit her up the back of the head, or just, I don't know, shake her and be like, girl, can you hear yourself? you're an idiot. All throughout, I say all throughout it, how did I get to this one? Apparently I DNF'd at less than 5%. So I got at most like a chapter or two into it and was just like, I straight up no, just no. But within that first chapter or two, which is, it was told first person, I think, our main character is going on and on and on about how, you know, she keeps making sense, she makes sensible decisions. She's actually really clever. I saw no evidence of that. She's really business smart. She specifically opened the Baby Dragon Cafe because it was an opening in the market. No one else was doing that, possibly for a reason. And she wanted there to be a safe space for them. For the Dragos. Think doggo, but Drago. Because, as a side note, yeah, these weren't actually dragons. These were just fire-breathing puppies and dogs. Like, other than that, like, nothing about them screamed dragon. This may as well. If she'd taken out the fantastical elements and just made this a dog cafe, it would have made so much more sense. But yeah, she keeps going on about that side. She keeps going on about how, you know, she's smart and things, and she really wants to make this work. But at the same time, she won't buy fireproof, steel reinforced furniture for the cafe because it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't look cute and kitsch and soft and welcoming the way that the wooden chairs do. And it's really eaten into her budget how she basically has to replace them every week or almost daily because the baby dragons who can't control their fire breath yet keep setting it on fire. Yeah, she's really smart that way. And that's as far as I got, and I couldn't. My friend tried to read it at the same time. She got as far as I did, and we were both like, I can't do this. I don't hate myself enough to put myself through this, so I'm not going to. So yeah, that was the Baby Dragon Cafe. I would tell you more, but I literally didn't read enough of it to tell you more. And then back up to another one which I can fully understand why people enjoy this book and why they like it. I personally don't feel smart enough for this book. I think the problem is that I am not smart enough for this book and I didn't study it in English. And that is Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger. Again, it's a very short book. I got nothing from it. I got literally nothing. I was about halfway through it. And bear in mind, I read this probably about 6 months ago. All I can remember is one of them is in a bathtub, he's smoking, drinking wine, and rereading a letter for the umpteenth time. Possibly sent from his brother. And I don't know, it felt like there was a lot of posturing, there was a lot of hoity-toityness almost, showy-offy. This just felt very, almost like this stereotype of English students in the, whenever this was written, I can't even remember when it was written, but I'm thinking like English, that upper middle class English students, I want to say in like the 40s, 50s, that very pretentious. Like the only word that properly comes to my mind about this book is pretentious. And again, it's a very short book, but I got about halfway through it and was just like, I'm not connecting with any of the characters. And like I said previous, if I don't connect with the characters, I don't care about your book. I'm not connecting with the characters. There's not actually a plot here. This is just a bunch of rambling. So I say I understand why people like this book. I actually don't. I actually don't. I imagine it is studied because there's some really pretty sentences in it, but like I say, this is definitely one of those books. I'm just not smart enough. I've not studied English enough to understand the point of this book. I do not get this book. So I didn't have to. Yeah. Second to last book was Trick or Treat by Katharine Diamond. This was the September-October book club for my local library book club. This is actually book 7 in a series. Although we were all assured, and the list that she picked it from assured us all that it could be read on its own. It is a crime procedural type series where each book is, like, they're episodic. Each book is a different mystery. The problem is there are overarching plots, as these often have, and yeah. So for the mystery, it's called Trick or Treat, and the only thing that makes it Halloween related is that a little boy on Halloween goes missing, is kidnapped. I think I DNF'd this about 60 pages in, and by that point I could already tell you who the murderer was. My book club confirmed I was right. I was like, yeah, it was really obvious. The author tried to put in a few red herrings, but they were so blatantly obvious. Like, there was nothing subtle about this whatsoever. Right, fine. I could have gone over that, but because in the back, happening in sort of like the background, and it was taking up a good 50% of what I read, at least, the overarching plot was what was supposed to be the main character, who the DS, whatever she was called, Logan something, I don't know. She had the least page time. Her partner, or her boyfriend, fiance, whatever, he had a lot more page time. He had been assaulted, physically and sexually, in the previous book. So this book is dealing with a lot of the aftermath of that and how he's coping or not coping. Problem is, I don't want to say I didn't care, but you can't just throw a reader into a situation, into the aftermath of a situation, and expect them to immediately feel heartbroken and sympathy for a character they don't know. I want to say I wouldn't have DNF'd this book had I read the previous book, but it's really not my genre, so I wouldn't have read the previous book to begin with. Yeah, I think had it focused more on the mystery of the kidnapping of the little boy and not been nearly as blatantly obvious, I would have stuck with this and I would have finished it because it was for a book club. But because it just had way too much focus, so yeah. Book club made me read a book in the middle of a series. Are we shocked it didn't work? And then I've only got one more book. So, like I say, there wasn't as much DNFs this year. But the last one I read is another one I was really excited about. I borrowed this from a friend. This one actually taught me something about myself. And it taught me something about books that I don't like. So I know to avoid certain books going forward. But it's Tusk Love by Thea Granzon. This is the romantasy that was written that is connected to Critical Role. Now, I know of Critical Role, I've seen small clips, but I've not properly watched any of their campaigns, so I don't know the lore behind this book, because this is a book that I think in the campaign their characters are reading this book, and it is supposed to be just a really trashy romance, which for us, the actual reader, translates into trashy fantasy romance. This book is basically a parody. So here's the thing. I love trashy romance. What we class as trashy romance. I love that. Give me all of the tropes. I love the tropes. They are tropes for a reason and I stand by that. I really enjoy books that are written lightheartedly and are not meant to be taken seriously. They are perfect escapism books. I don't love books that are written as a joke. This book, so I compare it to Assistant to the Villain because that's a book I've recently finished and I read them relatively close together. Assistant to the Villain is not written seriously. It's not meant to be like this deep, thought-provoking masterpiece of literature. It's just, it was written to have a good time. It was also based on a TikTok web series, I believe, which I've not actually watched. Assistant to the Villain did not rely on me being familiar with the TikTok series. Tusk Love very much relied on me being familiar with its context within Critical Role. But also, it almost felt like the author was setting out to make fun of the tropes rather than embrace the fun and silliness of the tropes. So again, I only got about 10% in. I did not enjoy the characters. They kept making decisions that just didn't make sense. It's like, it doesn't matter what your personality is. This doesn't make sense. It was way too insta-lovey, which I understand is part of the point of it. But it's like there's no... It's like there was no lead up. There was no... None of it made sense. I appreciate that I am no longer making sense by telling you that it doesn't make sense, but yeah, it just, the tone of the book, what it was setting out to achieve, it just didn't do it for me. And quite honestly, but unless you're a Critical Role fan, I genuinely wouldn't recommend this one to anyone. I know a lot of people have read it and really enjoyed it. It's not left me hopeful about the author's other works. My friend who read it, however, she is familiar with Critical Role. She really, really enjoyed this. And she is very excited to read more from Thea Granzon because I think what she was reading, what I read is just bad writing. She read as deliberate bad writing. So I think if you go into it with a different mindset, from different angle, different expectations, it's one of those books we're all gonna come away from it feeling slightly differently. I just didn't enjoy this at all. I found the female main lead really, really annoying. She's supposed to be like the naive, innocent, gullible, and it was like, yeah, it was every trope exemplified to, like, extrapolated to the extreme. At one point, like, their first night together, like, they're not together, just in proximity, they end up sharing a bed, which is obviously supposed to be there was only one bed trope, but there was literally two beds in the room and they just accidentally shared the bed together. And I was like, no, I'm out. I can't. No. He ends up sobbing on her shoulder, telling her about his tragic backstory and his mum who's just died. And it's like, 5 minutes ago, she was just an inconvenience and an annoyance and you really weren't liking her. So you literally, I think it was in the space of like a paragraph, went from disgruntled to sobbing on her shoulder because there's just something about her. So yeah, did not gel with me at all. But anyway, these have been the books that I have DNF'd last year, in 2025. These are the books I DNF'd in 2025. Let's go with that, shall we? I know there's been a lot of discourse, as there always is at this time of year, about whether or not it's useful to make this type of video. I personally do enjoy these ones because, like I say, we all DNF books for different reasons, and what works for one might not work for someone else, and likewise what doesn't work for me might work for you. So I think knowing why someone DNFs a book can be helpful, can be just as helpful to inform whether or not you want to read that book or not. So yeah, you have this. I appreciate I didn't make this video last year, but I'm kind of writing 2025 off in terms of a lot of my content, and we're hoping to get back to a lot more of my regular videos, including monthly wrap-ups this year. So be on the lookout for those. And yeah, in the meantime, like if you liked this, I guess. Subscribe if you fancy. Yeah, I plan on sticking around for a little while. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.